Practice review for stats. This first question, you have to know how to plug it into your calculator. Stat, edit, everything goes in L1. Stat, arrow over to calculator. One variable statistics. You have to know how to do that. If you don't, you have to come in and see me because I'm not going to make a video on that. You can look on Edpuzzle. I did make a video on how to use your calculator. To do that, the mean is the x of the line. So my mean would be 33.3. When you are doing these questions, I prefer if you round to the nearest 10th or 100th. The median is the med, which is equal to 35.25. Mode is the most often. Mean, average, median, middle. Mode is most often. There's two ways you can do this. You can either just look at your data and look to see which numbers pop up twice, or if there's two numbers, there's going to be two answers. If there's three numbers, three is a crowd, then there is no mode. Or you could try to sort your data and look to see which numbers are right next to each other and how often they occur. Either way, the mode in this data is 39.8. Next one, I'm going to go into more detail on finding the outlier, because if for some reason you can't tell, I'm going to actually write down the steps that you can do this mathematically. So the first step, you would want to put this into your calculator, and you should be able to find your Q1 and Q3. My Q1 is equal to 44.5. My Q3 is equal to 62.5. I'm also going to write just as a reference, because I want to look to see if I have any outliers. My min and max, so my min is 41 and my max is 93. Again, if you think you already know the outlier, you can state it, and hopefully you're right, but maybe you're not. That's why you can do it mathematically too if you don't want to. So the first step is you find your Q1, Q3. You find your IQR. Your IQR is your range, your interquartile range, so it's 62.5. Subtract 44.5 because it's Q3 minus Q1, which would be equal to 18. Now you use this number and you do Q1, so my Q1 is equal to 44.5, and you subtract your IQR. And that would be equal to 26.5. So anything below 26.5 is an outlier. My minimum is 41, so I don't have an outlier there. And then I take my Q3, which is 62.5, and I add my IQR. If I add those together, I get 80.5. So anything above 80.5 is an outlier. So when I look at my data, I have only one outlier. So this right here is my outlier, just 93. So 93 is my answer because that is my outlier, 93. Next one, you have to plug it all into your calculator and find your 5 data points to help you do your box and whisker. Here are my data points. When I look at my range, if I did 53 minus 38, I don't have a huge range. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my number line. I'm going to start with 36 because that's smaller than 38. And I'm going to have each tick mark represent 2. So it would be 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, and 56. Again, you can every number line do something different. Your box and whisker should still be the same. So I'm going to plot my minimum first. So this is 38. I'm going to plot my maximum next. This is 53. That's a 5. And I have my middles. So I have 42. And then my median is 45. So my middle, my absolute middle, and 49.5. So about here. Again, your middles are lines. They make your boxes. And your other points are your whiskers. So that's my box and whisker plot. Now it also says state any conclusion you might have about your box and whisker plot. So I don't want to just max your min. Different things you could say is the data, there's the bell. The data looks pretty evenly spread out because it looks like each section is about the same. So I could say the data is pretty evenly spread out. I could say the range of temp is 15 degrees. If I did 53 minus 38, 53 minus 38, that would give me the range is 15 degrees. I could say 25% of the data is in between 38 and 42, or 25% of the time the temperature is between 38 and 42, 25% of the time the temperature is in between 42 and 45, 25% of the time is between 45 and 49, things like that. Or else you could say 50% of the time the temperature, because remember each section is 25, so 50% of the time the temperature is in between 42 and 49.5. Next, first one, you plug into your calculator. You have to get these numbers, stat, edit, stat, calculate. You get your mean is 71.67. Your standard deviation, so it's SX, is equal to 17.35. I'm asking how many standard deviations from the mean. So I start with my mean. My mean is 71.67. On the right-hand side, I should be adding my standard deviation. On the left-hand side, I'm subtracting my standard deviation. So I do 71.67 and add 17.35. I get 89.02. And I get 54.32. Well, that does not fit my min and max, because my min here is 42, and my max here is 98. So 42 and 98, they are not in between those two numbers, so I have to move out again. So I subtract, can I subtract 17.35, and I'm going to be adding 17.35. My next two numbers would be 36.97, and my next number would be 106.37. So now these two numbers would include my min and my max, because 42 and 98 are in between these two numbers. 42 and 98 are in between those two numbers. There are two standard deviations. This is 1, this is 2. My overall answer is going to be 2 standard deviations. So this question shows my normal distribution curve because it looks like a bell ring. You have to be able to read directions. You have to be able to say that, oh, this is my percent of people. So this is not like the chart that we have the exact same amount on each side, but it does show the percents right here. So my overall question is saying in between 700 and 749. So if I look, that's only this section. I'm only looking at this section. I'm only looking at one section. If there's more than one section, you'd have to add the two together. So since I'm just looking at that section, I can kind of look, okay, where am I going with this? This is about here, so that would be roughly about 25% of apartment residents pay between 700 and 749. And the last one, so it's already giving you the means. My mean here is 82, so I put that in the middle. And it already gives you your standard deviation. So you add 8, you get 90, you add 8 again, you get 98, you add 8 again, you get 106, you subtract 8, you get 74, you add, or subtract 8 again, you get 66, you subtract 8 again, you get 58. One thing you always have to remember is we don't give you the tail percent, but you also remember this cuts it in half. So if you don't remember what number goes here, this cuts it in half. So I could do 50, subtract this, subtract this, subtract this, and I would get that each tail is equal to 0.15%. And this tail is also 0.15%. Oh my goodness. So each tail is always going to be 0.15%. My next question is saying less than 74. So here's 74. This is everything less than. So any percent that's less than that. Just looking at these three sections. So you could either do one, add up those three sections, or if you wanted to, you could remember that this is half of your data. So this is the only section you're not using for half of your data. Half is 50. Subtract the 34% you're not using. Either way, you should get 16% as your final answer for B. There you go. There you have it. Have a great, grand, wonderful, whatever time of day you are watching this at.